everyone, and welcome back to Lucky Loaders 15, where I'll be giving you 4 of my best tips for tomorrow's racing. Now, before we get stuck into them, just want to go through a couple of things with you. Now, first of all, if you haven't done so already, make sure you listen to the latest episode of the In the Saddle podcast, where we were joined by 4-time champion jockey Richard Johnson as our special guest this week. Unfortunately, the first half of the podcast is about the Cheltenham Trials meeting, which unfortunately isn't going to go ahead due to the weather. So yeah, that is frustrating there. However, we still spoke about some of the races at Doncaster, and also as well, Dickie was very amicable, and he decided to stay around as well to ask some of our questions we had for him at the end of the podcast. So if you want to listen to that podcast, we've got links to it in the description box below. We've got all the major podcast platforms covered, including Apple, Spotify, SoundCloud, whichever one takes your fancy. Just hit one of the links in the description box below. And also as well, if you are listening to the podcast, please remember to subscribe, rate and review our podcast. Really appreciate it if you could do that. So yeah, that's what I've got to say about that. Also as well, quickly just want to reflect on how our only selection of the day ran. It was very frustrating in the end as we put up Megan as my nap in the juvenile fillies listed hurdle. Was very disappointing in the end for Kieran Gethens and Stuart Edmonds. Put it up last night to 6-1 and was absolutely smashed in the betting. At one point was nearly vying it out for favouritism. I saw 5-2 at one point. Was the shortest she went, but in the end she just couldn't live up to market expectations. I thought she was travelling okay for the majority of the race, but then when we just about to turn into the home straight, something didn't quite look right. Kieran Gethens wasn't happy and he decided to call it a day and he pulled her up. I don't know if anything's come to light. I'll try and have a look if I can a little bit later, but yeah, just one of those things sometimes that do happen in racing. Horses aren't machines, and hopefully she's okay. So yeah, that's why that's what happened with our only selection of the day. Yeah, it got pulled up when just entering the home straight, but fingers crossed, like I said, it's nothing too serious for Megan. But yeah, on the whole for January, we've not been in bad form really, to be honest. We started off the month not in great form. We kind of turned it around in the last couple of weeks, went on a little bit of a streak, and we were still in good form at the start of this week. But yeah, the last couple of days, I will admit, have been disappointing. Thursday and Friday haven't been good, but fingers crossed we can end January on a high, as we've only got 2 more days left now for the month, and we've got not bad days racing tomorrow despite losing Cheltenham. So let's get into it then. I've got 4 tips for tomorrow's racing, and we're going to be starting with my first tip tomorrow, which is going to be an extra tip in the 2 o'clock at Kempton, and I'm going to be going with a horse here called Hasanabad for Tom Marquand and Ian Williams. Now this horse at the time recording is available at 6-1. I'm going to recommend a 0.5 each way bet. Now this horse, Hasanabad, really did take the eye last time in a jumpers bumpers race at Lingfield when Charlie Todd was aboard that day, and this horse was 8-15 odds on favourite for the race, and in the end travelled like a favourite but just never got the gaps. I don't think Charlie gave it the best of rides. I think it was a bit of both, bit of bad luck, and also as well maybe the jockey still a little bit inexperienced. But yeah, this horse was the best horse in the race but just never got the gaps. Was badly hampered about 3 or 4 times. I watched the race replay back earlier and I was like, how did this horse not win? And it was only when he got going in the last furlong or so that he showed a good turn of foot and he hit the line really strongly. Now, if you actually look outside of that run and look at his form overall, he's got quite an interesting profile. He originally started out with Dermot Weld, where he did okay on the flat. He won a race at the Galway Festival, and then he came over to Ian Williams's, and he's been a little bit hit and miss. He's been tried more over hurdles than he has on the flat, but to be fair, when he has run on the flat, I thought his penultimate start, which came at Chelmsford, was a decent effort when he finished second behind the Charlie Appleby horse from the Godolphin operation, who looks really smart, and he had to give him £4 that day, and I think that horse is definitely going to be a horse to follow. He could be potentially a cup horse, or at least be competing in some of the top staying handicaps. So I really think that was a good effort by Hasanabad that day. And looking at this race as a whole, I thought it was a good chance for Hasanabad to go close. I know Holly Doyle's mount will be popular for John Gosden amongst punters tomorrow, but I thought Hasanabad really should be a lot shorter in the betting, and he should be nearly fighting out for favouritism, in my opinion. I think the trip will be fine. I think the race will set up quite perfectly for him. If Tom Marquand can get him nicely settled out the back, I think he's got races in him off his mark of 92. And I think this race isn't actually the strongest race for the grade. So yeah, I think Hasanabad's got a lot going for him tomorrow. And I'll be disappointed if he couldn't at least make the frame. And I think at 6-1, that's a cracking each way bet. So that's going to be our first tip of the day. And fingers crossed we can get off to a fly. We then go to my nap of the day. And some of you might already know what it's going to be if you've listened to the In the Saddle podcast. And it's going to be Shang Tang in the Albert Bartlett Trial, the 240 at Doncaster. Currently available at 10-1 Skybet, who are offering 5 places on this race. And I'm going to recommend a 1 point each way selection for Adam Wedge and Emma Lavelle. Now, when I put this up on the In the Saddle podcast, he was actually available at 14-1. So there has been a bit of money around for him. Probably some of my money that's maybe influencing the markets. But yeah, I think Shang Tang tomorrow's got a good chance in this race. Now, some of you might be really questioning me why I'm putting him up. And you might say he was disappointing on his last couple of runs where he fell and he was pulled up. Obviously, that doesn't look too good, but I think he's got excuses for both of them runs. I don't think the nature of the race and the Lanzarote when he was pulled up last time out would have suited him at all. I don't think he's a horse that wants to be handy. He was really keen in that race, but to be fair, he was still there or thereabouts coming into the home turn, but it was clear that he just didn't have the gears to go on, and I don't think the speed nature of Kempton suited him. If you actually go back through his form, he ran in the EBF final last year behind McFabulous, and he was well beaten. So I think Kempton is a track you can just draw a line through that run. At Wincanton, he fell at the first, so we don't know how he would have got on that day, but I know he was well fancied for that race. But if you go back a couple of starts to his run at Ascot, I think he definitely has a chance on that performance alone. Now, that day he beat a horse called Southfield Harvest of Paul Nicholls, and I think they're 2 really smart horses. And Southfield Harvest actually came second in that race at Wincanton on Boxing Day. But Shang Tang showed a really good willing attitude that day, and he was going away at the line. It was a really good performance, I think, by Shang Tang in soft ground, and that's definitely going to suit him tomorrow. And I just think the nature of the race might suit him. He's a second season novice, and I just think this is going to be a real gruel. Quite a few of the ones at the top of the market have already they've shown ability, but they haven't maybe got necessarily the experience of some of these rivals. And I think Shang Tang, that will suit him. And like I said, going up in trip, I think will suit him too. I've seen quotes from Emma Lavelle saying that the plan tomorrow is to hopefully hold this horse up, which I think will suit him. And also as well, going to Doncaster is another positive, especially as well if you're a fan of stable form. I know some people have been saying that form isn't everything, but form is one of those bread and butter things for me that I always stick by. And Emma Lavelle's got a fantastic record at Doncaster. She's got a 25% all-time strike rate, and I think if you backed all her runners, you'll be up £20 or something to a £1 stake. So that's definitely an interesting stat there. She also as well won this race in 2018 with a horse called Enes Gofioska. So again, that's another tick in the box. And she had a winner today with a horse called Sam Burton at Doncaster. So there's a lot to like about this horse's chances tomorrow. I think the profile of him is definitely suited for the race. I know that they think of the world of him, and I just think he's a really big price in this race tomorrow. And I think quite a few of these at the top of the market will flop. And I think a horse like Shang Tang will be coming to the fore, and I think he'll go really close. And I just think his willing attitude that I've seen on a couple of starts from him during his career might just be best served going up in trip. And I think he's a major player in this race tomorrow. So that's why Shang Tang is going to be my nap of the day. We then go to Lingfield for the 255, and this is where my next best is going to be coming in here with a horse called Midnight's Legacy for Martin Harley and Alan King. Now, I followed this horse since his debut. He caught my eye on debut when he ran as a 2-year-old at Bath, and then he went and won on his next start at Bath. And he was always a horse that I was going to follow as a 3-year-old. He started his 3-year-old career very well, winning a couple of races at Haydock, but then the wheels started to come a little bit unstuck. He had a go over hurdles which didn't maybe quite go as they would have planned. However, he had a little bit of a break after that. And then he ran last time out at Lingfield when he finished 6th a couple of weeks ago. However, he wasn't too far beaten in that race. In that race, you had Thurzig that won it, and also as well Oslo. Both of them had some good recent form going into that race. And Midnight's Legacy wasn't given a hard time by Megan Nichols, who was aboard that day in the closing stages, and he wasn't far behind them at all, and he was still there with every chance going into the home straight. So I think he would have learned a lot that day. He's also as well had a wind up, and I think it'll come forward for that run. So I think he's got a good chance in this race. I think Pirate King is too short for me in the betting, and I think I think Midnight's Legacy, who's still only 4 years old, might have a bit more ability to come from his mark. And I think this isn't a particularly strong race on paper. I think Pirate King is the one he has to beat, but I think Midnight Legacy at 7-2 is a bit of value there. And King's horses have been running well, as it's been well documented. And I just think this horse will go really close tomorrow. And if I was pricing him up, I would have him up about 9-4, 2-1 kind of shot. So I think 7-2 is good value there. And at 7-2, I'm going to recommend a 1 point win bet as my next best of the day. We then end with an extra tip in the Skybet chase at Doncaster tomorrow, the 3:15. I'm going with an old favourite here called I Write for Callum Bewley and Harriet Graham. Now I'm going to recommend a 1 point each way bet here with Skybet, who offer an 8-1 5 places, and I think this horse could maybe finally have his day. He's been a bit of a bridesmaid so far this season in some really decent races. He finished second behind Nutswell on his first start at Kelso this season. That's been really a really good form line. He then went to the Charlie Hall where he outran his odds, but he still ran a great race behind Surname and Vindication to finish third. He then went to the Ladbrokes Trophy where I really fancied him for that, but he just bumped into Cloth Cap that day, who he had to give away nearly a stone in weight to. So yeah, I Write, he's been a great horse for Harriet Graham this season, and I still think off a mark of 151, he's got races in him. I still think he could easily have another £5 or £6 up his sleeve. You know, I think he's definitely a high 150s horse, and the handicapper hasn't quite got to him yet. He could maybe say, it could be said he was maybe disappointing at Newcastle in a jumpers bumper, but he hasn't run in one of those kind of races for a long time. He's never run a jumpers bumper in his career, but despite being a bumper winner, he's not raced like that for a while. And apparently the reports were Callum Bewley was actually struggling to pull him up, even though he was beaten in that race after the line. He wanted to go around again, you know. So I just think he's got used to the style of jump racing, you know. So I think going back over the fences tomorrow will be a massive plus. It'll be up there, the pace, you know, he likes to be handy. He could even make the running, you know. And in those kind of stay-in races, stay-in chases, I think that's always a good tactic. You don't want to be too far back. And I think tomorrow, I think he's got a cracking chance in the race. He's very versatile ground-wise as well, so that shouldn't be a problem. I know some of the sexy horses at the top, like Cap de Nord and Canelo, bring some really good form as well into the race. It's a really good renewal this race this year. There's some really strong, decent form claims, but I'd be concerned for the ground with Cap de Nord. And also as well, I'd question that race as well at Kempton, despite, yes, Royal Pagel winning, and also as well Double Shuffle coming to boost that form. I just think a lot of the horses in behind it maybe weren't that good. So I think Cap de Nord, yeah, I can see why he's favourite. He's definitely the one on paper they've got beat. But I think I Write has been a little bit overlooked in the market, and in my opinion, I think he should be a little bit shorter. If I was pricing him up, I would have him around about second favourite for this race, to be honest with you. I think he should be about 5-1, 9-2 personally myself. So I think I Write definitely represents a lot of good each way value for the race, and that's why he's going to be my extra tip of the day in the 3:15 at Doncaster, and I'm going to recommend a 1 point each way bet there. So yeah, they're the 4 tips for tomorrow's racing. Let me know in the comments box below what you're going to be backing tomorrow. Also as well, if you're enjoying these videos, please remember to hit the thumbs up button and subscribe here to my YouTube channel for more videos. Also as well, if you want to follow me on Twitter, you can do. It's the best place to follow me on social media, where my handle is @LuckyLoader15. And if you want to find out a little bit more about myself, my website address is www.chrisloaderracing.co.uk. So please gamble responsibly. Hopefully we can have some winners tomorrow, and we'll be seeing you soon.